This lesson was originally recorded in 2020 for my Russian-speaking students, and it's been translated into English with the help of AI, so I can make more videos for you. Please support the channel with likes, comments, and a subscription. New lessons are on Patreon. In this lesson, we'll paint a mosque in an unusual technique with a backlit, contre-jour lighting setup. We'll keep a clear, readable silhouette, but we'll still build volume using warm to cool colour shifts and careful value control. I'll show you how to make smooth, even washes without puddles and create clean, warm, cool transitions without muddy colour. Before we start, please give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and check the playlists tab. All lessons are sorted by topic, and if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Your comments also help the channel grow through the algorithm. All links are in the description. Alright, let's start. I recorded a separate video just for the construction sketch, because many students told me the pencil drawing is hard to see on camera. And honestly, that makes sense. On watercolor paper, you really shouldn't press hard with a pencil. It ruins the lightness of the painting, leaves grooves, and pigment can get stuck in those grooves later. So, keep your pencil touch very light. That's why I made a clear construction diagram on a graphic tablet, so everything is easy to understand. So, what are our big shapes here? You can roughly split the sheet into two parts. The main dome reaches about the middle of the page, and the minaret that sits behind the dome is placed almost on the 1/3 line. If you divide the sheet into thirds, it lands around one of those thirds, slightly to the right, depending on how your dome is built. We'll adjust as we sketch so it feels natural. The mosque is almost a flat silhouette, but there is a little perspective. A simple way to think of the base is as a rough box, and one edge of that box lines up with the minaret. Minarets are often on corners in real life, but for us it's not the main point. We just need convincing proportions. Now let's check the minaret height so everything matches. As a mental unit, take the distance from the base of the mosque up to the top of the main dome. If you compare the minaret to that unit, you'll get about 2 more of those units in the minaret's height. And from the dome up to the top tower of the minaret is roughly 1.5 units by eye. Then you can drop that same distance down to the ground. I'm basically measuring with an imaginary ruler here. Once we've estimated those distances, we can place the main dome. It's a clean semicircle with a small little notch or architectural detail at the base. Now the minaret tower, it has 2 balconies. And a quick note from experience. Students struggle a lot with making it either too thick or too skinny. Try to find that middle width. You can draw a light center line as an axis of symmetry if it helps, though it's not strictly necessary. There are also 2 smaller domes on the sides. They don't scream for attention, but we do need them. They're part of the architecture. When you draw the left small dome, remember there's slight perspective foreshortening. Watch how that little half dome sits in space. For the lower buildings, you can improvise more. They're just little houses, and the exact shapes aren't as critical. And then we have the second minaret tower. Don't push it all the way into the left edge of the page. Leave a bit of air. For its height, you can again compare it to the main dome. Its upper balcony sits around the level of the central guideline in the reference. Now step back and look at the whole sketch. Check the relationships between dome sizes, the little houses in front, and the minaret heights. With recognizable architecture, proportions matter. In a loose landscape with trees, you can cheat more. Here, we want a believable, recognizable silhouette. One more check. Inside the main dome, about 2 small domes fit in width. That helps you keep scale consistent. Okay, I'll skip the paper sketch stage here and jump into colour. When your drawing is ready, lift extra pencil with a kneaded eraser so the painting stays light. We'll start with the background. Even though it's super pale, and in the photo it might look like there's almost no colour, we still want to give the sky a gentle tone. It should not compete with the mosque. If the sky is bright and the mosque is saturated, it's just too much. So, a soft, subtle gradient from the top. I begin by wetting the entire sheet with water. I'm not worried about going over the mosque because the darker tones of the building will cover it later. Then I tilt the paper so the paint can flow. This makes gradients easier. I place colour at the top and pull it down with the tip of the brush, smoothing as I go. As the wash moves downward, it naturally becomes lighter, and because the sheet is tilted, the paint also slides down on its own. For the bottom part, I mix orange with a tiny touch of red, so it's a warm red-orange, but still more orange than red. Very diluted. And remember, watercolour dries lighter. If you go too pale, it disappears. So keep it gentle but visible. At the very bottom, it's slightly more reddish. Higher up, it's more orange. And I blend it upward the same way I did with the sky. When this dries, it will be extremely soft. You can push it slightly brighter if you want. If you get extra water collecting, especially near the mosque, lift those drops right away. We want a smooth, even wash. Now we need to wait until the background is completely dry so we can get clean edges. Next step depends on your paper. If your paper doesn't hold moisture well and it grabs pigment fast, it's better to work wet into wet in sections. For example, wet just the minaret shape, then introduce colour into that wet area. If you're on good cotton paper, you can often do a larger continuous wash and move downward slowly. The water doesn't sink instantly, so you have more working time. If you work in sections, remember, wherever your wet area ends, a hard edge can appear. So wet a large enough area to avoid awkward borders. Now, about the lighting. This is a backlit scene. The light is coming toward us, and we mostly see a silhouette. But in backlight, the colour transitions can be really beautiful. On one side, we get a cool bluish silhouette. On the other side, we see warm reflected colour, those rusty orange notes. Most likely the sun is low behind the mosque, so the lower parts of the minarets catch warm light and reflect it, so they look a bit ginger. For colours, I use a mix of blue and violet. If you love granulation, you can use ultramarine instead. For the warm brown, I use burnt sienna and mix in a warmer orange note so it feels rusty. You can experiment with different browns, some more red, some more orange, but keep it warm. And here's the big warning. If you mix blue and brown too much, you'll get mud, so don't overmix. Instead, gently drop one into the other, or place them next to each other and let watercolour do the blending. The less you stir, the cleaner it looks. Yes, in some places they will merge into a natural grey. That's okay. Just don't force it everywhere. As I move lower, I keep adding colour into the domes. You can do it in stages. Wet the upper dome area first, then continue down into the smaller domes. There's a tiny highlight on some of the small domes, a little sparkle. You can leave a small white gap there, and if a boundary shows up, it's not a disaster. Quick note, there's also a small minaret tower far in the background. I actually forgot it during filming and only remembered while editing, so don't forget it. Just paint it in a pale, light tone. Now look at the mosque. The left side is turned more toward the light, so it's warmer, more rusty. And because the dome is round, but that rectangular block is turned at an angle, the right side reads cooler and bluer. Under the small dome, there's a rectangular element turned by a corner. One face is blue. The face turned left is darker. Then we get shadow, then a lit wall again, warm on the left. The main dome also has two families of colour, cooler on the right, warmer on the left, two connected washes. Those stripes down below could be windows or decorative bands. Just hint at them. Don't get lost in detail. Too much detail makes the painting heavy, and we don't even know exactly what's there anyway. A few light scribbles, tiny window hints, that's enough. Now the far minaret. It's lighter in value. Atmospheric perspective. Otherwise it works the same way, alternating cool bluish sections, blue-violet or ultramarine, and warm brown sections under the balconies and ledges. If it feels tricky, do it the easy way. Wet the entire minaret first, then touch in the colours with the very tip of the brush. When the minaret is done, you can connect it right away to the bush silhouettes in the foreground. Same palette, same mood. The houses in front are closer so they can be more colourful. One is slightly pinkish, just brown diluted, or brown with a touch of red. The second is cooler and greyer. Their corners can shift in temperature too, cooler patches here and there. And if a little wash runs into a bush and creates a bloom, honestly, for bushes, it's usually not a big problem. Once it's a bit dry, you can add simple details. A few lines, tiny windows, either on damp paper or fully dry, depending on the edge you want. For the closest house, I use a mix of deep dark blue, blue-violet plus a bit of brown, or Indanthrone blue with a dark brown, and a dark red-brown, like Caput Mortuum. And if you have a very dark violet, even English red mixed into it can become dark enough for those shadowy parts. The darkest area is the roof. Under the roof, I do a two-colour transition, deep blue shifting into warm brown, like on the mosque but more intense. Just keep an eye on moisture. Enough wetness so the colours merge softly, but not so much water that everything turns chaotic. While the second house dries, I add a window line, deepen under the roof, and sometimes lift a bit of paint under the roof edge to show thickness. For windows, it helps to lift first, then drop a dark tone into half of that rectangle. Instant depth. In the foreground, we can afford more detail than on the mosque itself, so go a bit sharper here. I also tried adding one extra bush in the front. You can skip it, it doesn't change much. And again, don't forget that little far minaret tower. So that's the technique. The result looks surprisingly three-dimensional, even though it's mostly simple washes. The depth comes from colour. We increase intensity toward the viewer, and we place warm, cool transitions exactly where the light suggests them. I really recommend trying this and making it part of your watercolour toolkit. It's super useful, and it's something you can't truly replicate with any other medium. If you paint in watercolour, paint what you love, and paint it the way you love. See you in the next masterclass. Bye.